Hi, welcome to Edward Boss Guitar Tuition. So my classic album inspection to date is Queen's album Jazz, November 10th, 1978. It's 45 years old today. I must confess I came to this album very late. I've only been delving into it recently, and what I found interesting is I've always assumed it's Queen going more sort of pop, based on the singles, certainly two of them, and also the album artwork isn't as rock as the previous album, News of the World. But what's interesting when you listen to it, it's as rock as any of those other Queen albums, but it does flirt with what's going to come on certain tracks. But also, it's kind of a compendium of what Queen have been doing up to then. But although it's eclectic, it feels more cohesive in my mind. But we'll go through the tracks. By this time, Queen are starting to change the image. They kind of cut the hair shorter around maybe Day at the Races, News of the World, certainly News of the World. Although you wouldn't know that from the album cover, the artwork. Not Brian, obviously, he never has, but just probably kind of taking time more with the punk new wave thing that's happening. And so on. But on this tour, they will record the Live Killers album, and that's firmly the end of what I'd call the Queen rock era. So this is these first 7 albums of Live Killers are the albums that really the hardcore Queen fans love. After that, there'll be no more for their hit singles, and the hit singles will drive their records more, I think, although they've always had hit singles. There's a great phrase by the great record man Clive Davis, and he calls it a continuity of hits. And when artists dry up who have single success, it's because they've lost their continuity of hits and it doesn't drive album sales. And Queen are one of those bands that they always had a continuity of hits right the way through. Once Seven Seas of Rye was a minor hit from Queen too, and from then on they always were present. There was only Hot Space where they took a bit of a dip, but they still had Under Pressure off that, and that kind of salvaged that album from total failure. So this album's got 13 tracks on it. It opens up with Mustafa, so this is an unusual track. The production's kind of thinned off at the start. It's piano, bass, drums, but it's kind of not very large. It sounds very raw, and then the track kind of explodes. I think the lyrics consist of English, Arabic and Persian, and possibly a number of invented words. I'm just looking there on Wikipedia. There's a quite useful breakdown of the tracks. And I think that's interesting, is that thing where Freddie's playing with the syllables in the words. It's not meant to make lyrical sense necessarily. It's about being catchy. Kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody says, recalling like Galileo, Figaro. It's using Italian opera words because they have a lot of syllables in them. And when you've got a lot of syllables in a word, you can kind of expand melody, and the syllables can be catchy themselves in terms of sound. So I like this track. I give it 6, 7 out of 10. It's an experimental track. It's a really unusual track. So I like this. Again, it's short as well. I'll just go down a second. Yeah, it's only 3 minutes and 3 seconds. So next track's Fat Bottom Girls. So what's interesting in this, that the album is kind of a compendium in many respects of what Queen have done up to this point. You'll hear elements on tracks of previous albums, and this track uses a drop D tuning, which Brian May, I'm not sure if he used it before, but I know he uses it on the track White Man on the Day at the Races album, which is another cool track. I like, a good album track. I would say recently I've come to like Day at the Races more, it's a solid 7, 8 out of 10, and I've liked News of the World less. I think News of the World's got some great tracks, particularly It's Late at the end, but there's some tracks that just don't work for me near the end of that album. So I think this one's better, which was a revelation to me. So Fat Bottom Girls, really good single. I loved it as a kid. It's rocking, great harmony chorus. Next is Jealousy. Now this was released as a single, I believe. Not very well known, but a really good Freddie piano ballad. Brian plays acoustic on this. He said he had a replacement bridge, and the fret wire was. He played a small piece of fret wire placed between the strings, and it gave it a sitar effect. Now I thought, this track used a sitar, but it's actually that. He uses some kind of Dorian mode, which is kind of used in jazz a lot, and it just gives it a really nice thing. I really like this track, just really strong. Then you got Bicycle Race, What's interesting when you re-listen to this track, obviously, you know, it's a song we all know, it was a good size hit. It's just how mental it is. You know, it's got a mental structure, it's got a 12/8 middle section, like a slow swinging blues. Then there's all the bells ringing, which kind of come from different parts of the stereo spectrum. And then Brian has his classic thing where he plays up a major scale, and it's kind of panning, and then it goes into harmony. And that's the amazing thing about Brian May. He'll just go do 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 do. He'll just play do re mi on his guitar, but it sounds like Brian May. And he's done it quite a lot of times. You know, does it on Bohemian Rhapsody, and the end of Kind of Magic explores that as well. And then If You Can't Beat Them, Join Them. This is a hard rock composition by John Deacon. It's one of the few compositions by John Deacon, because he plays guitar as well, where Brian May plays all the guitars, probably because it's a rock song. This is a really good track, a really good Queen rocker. Works really well. Then you got Let Me Entertain You. I'll give this 6 out of 10. It's a cool track. Some good lyrics on this. We Will Cruella de Vil You and stuff like that. And that was the end of the original side one. Yeah, I mean, it's really, really good, eclectic, but it's got balance. I'm not as into the production on this album. Obviously, it's got all the Queen elements, but the drum sounds are not as good as News of the World or Day at the Races. But to me, Queen have never had a great drum sound. They've always had a really good bass, Brian's unique guitar sound, and the layered backing vocals and all the ideas they do have always been the strength of them and Roy Thomas Baker's production. I think this is the last album they do with Roy Thomas Baker as well. I think after this they just work with Mac over in Munich, but I could be wrong. And in actual fact, yeah, this is it's recorded in Montreux and Super Bear Studios in the Alps. Going on to side 2, you got Dead on Time. This is really fast, aggressive track. Again, it records the groove to Keep Yourself Alive and Brighton Rock. So again, touching base with something they've done before, but really good. It's a May composition. It's got intense drumming. It's really good. I really like it. Then there's the plaintive ballad in Only 7 Days. This is John Deacon. He plays the acoustic and electric guitars on the song. It was a B-side of Don't Stop Me Now. Like I said, I'm getting Wikipedia facts here. But this is a lovely ballad. It's about like a sort of a crush, a romance on holiday when you're a kid, when you're a teenager. I imagine John Deacon's reflecting on a holiday when he's maybe 13, 14. And he's just away for 7 days, and he makes friends with a girl, I guess. And it's really good. You know, not a great song. I give it 6 out of 10, but some people love it. I like it. It's an interesting song. Next track's Dreamer's Balls. Now this is interesting. This is Brian May's tribute to Elvis Presley, died a year before. What's interesting about this is it's like one of those Queen songs where you've got, you know, Lazy on a Sunday afternoon and things like that, where they're playing in an old-fashioned rock and roll or jazz style. But I think this is done better, this one. It kind of recalls later on Van Halen did a track called Could This Be Magic on the Women and Children first album, and I love that track. And Queen captures, it's got great harmony guitars by Brian, the groove's great, they get a really nice jum, jum, jum. Guitars are great, Freddie does a really good vocal, and I was surprised by this track. It wouldn't be normally a song I like by Queen, but I just think they've done tracks in this sort of idiom before, but they've just done a really cracking job of it. Obviously, I think Elvis passing away has made me inspired. People forget Brian's a big Elvis and Scotty Moore. You know, all those guitarists of Brian's generation, the first guitarists to get into a Hank Marvin and Scotty Moore of Elvis, because there isn't anyone else, you know. These are the first 2 guitar heroes for British listeners. There isn't anyone else. Then George Harrison comes along. It's many years until you get Eric, 65, Jeff, Jimmy Page, and of course the great Jimi Hendrix, who's a huge influence on Brian. Then you got Fun It. This is a track that predates Another One Bites the Dust. Again, it's got a disco vibe. Roger Taylor writes, he does most of the lyrics. He uses some Syndrome pads on it. This is what they call them. Notice like electronic drums on it, which I don't like. But it's quite interesting that John Deacon kind of does a better job of the disco funk thing, chic thing. Another One Bites the Dust is a classic. This track's an interesting experiment. I quite like it. I like Roger's vocals. You forget what a good rock singer, moody singer Roger Taylor is. He's probably the second best singer in Queen. You know, he could sing lead vocals in a rock band straight off. They got Leaving Home Ain't Easy. Brian does this, he sings it, lovely acoustic guitars, great harmony guitars, uses, I think, what's called a Mixolydian flat 6 mode, a bit of a major tonality with minor, but I'm not sure, I'd have to work it out. Again, not a great track, but an interesting album track. Don't Stop Me Now, one of Queen's most famous songs, one of the most euphoric pop rock songs ever written, ruined by crap cover versions, particularly McFly, who I hate. Yeah, really good. I probably don't need to hear it again, but it's a great piece of writing. Really good chord changes on this, good solo. Then there's more of that jazz that finishes off. This is Roger Taylor plays most of the guitars on this, I think. Just checking here. Yeah, plays most of the instruments and sings all the vocals. He peaks on a high E5 with falsetto. I like this track. I think the chorus lets it down when he's kind of got more of that jazz. You know, it needs a bigger hook, but it's got a really cool groove, and it's quite interesting when they edit in the tracks. Dead on Time, Bicycle Racing, Mustafa, If You Can't Beat Him, Fun and Fat Mom Girls at the end. So that ends the album. So yeah, 13 tracks. Queen kind of stretching out and bringing in all the elements that they've done on previous albums, but creating something quite consistent for me, and more rock. So if you're a Queen fan but you like the rock stuff, you know, you want to get this album, all the 7 albums including this, and Live Killers. People, the albums afterwards have their fans, and they've all got great tracks on them, particularly Innuendo. People like it's rocking, but I do think there's that difference when Queen go into the video age. The hair's very short. Freddie's changed his image. I think to a certain extent that hurt them in America. The Game album's very successful in America on the back of No One Bites the Dust, but I think the sort of pop and the image of the band would have put off middle America. And that's where you're selling a lot of your records. You know, Queen did 4 million copies on the News of the World album. Jazz was platinum. The Game album did very well, but probably because it kind of attracted a different audience. Hot Space tanked. After that, they were just gold in America. But, you know, the greatest hits sell really well. Still one of the biggest selling bands ever. Okay, so that's the Jazz album. I hope you enjoyed that. I think it's a solid 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. And it's well worth checking out. So I'll see you again soon for another classic album inspection. Remember to share and subscribe. And thanks very much.